Well, hello there. It seems you have found my little vacation spot out in the woods. Nothing beats being disconnected from the outside world for even a little bit, especially if you got a great book in your hands. My go-to books is either one of the Tolkien classics that I never seem to finish, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, hey, no judging, or the gigantic amount of gun-related media you can get your hands on. The latter, however, I feel like is quickly being overshadowed by just the fact that the internet has made most of it obsolete when any information is just a search away, but that's just a shame, since I find physical media like gun books a great way to lay back and let the minutes fly by. Hey, since we got nothing else to do in this cozy little cottage, let's take a peek with your old pal Wubba Bubba on how different types of printed gun-related media are downright underrated and cozy as hell. Here's my tiny collection of gun-related books. I got a little bit of everything here, so what I'm going to do is go through each different type of reading material I have and give my thoughts on why I like them so much. Let's start off with gun magazines. Some of you thinking, what makes gun magazines so cozy? A lot of it is the same information or advertisements you can see from content creators on YouTube or from a reputable website. I think it's based on a lot of things, but I think it's mostly that it's a physical object that can't be changed. Whatever is printed on the paper is there forever, so you gotta give it reading it a try and get enjoyment out of it instead of increasingly diminished dopamine hits from scrolling on your phone. I think the location plays that part too. Imagine you're stuck at the local grocery store with your family and you just happen to walk into the magazine section by yourself, with multiple gun-related magazines appearing right before you. You just grab one that interests you and read away. Either flipping through it on the cold hard floor or on the move, it really makes the time fly by with interesting articles that may bring up stuff you've never even thought of before, reading some reviews on guns you may or may not be interested in all, or just soak in the full-colored pages of ads captured in ways that scream, "Open your wallet." Then when you finally arrive at checkout, you just loosely place it on the candy bar shelf because you realize it's $10 for the issue. If you do choose to buy it, it will serve as a kind of nice time waster right before bed, or a few years later, a time capsule that reminds you what type of stuff was popping off at the time. For that reason alone, always take to the thrift stores and search for old gun magazines. Next up are gun catalogs. Flipping through gun catalogs is like flipping through a old Toys R Us Christmas catalog and circling what toys you want. Doesn't matter if it's new or old, seeing thousands of guns on hundreds of pages to me, it's just way more satisfying than browsing any store online. Plus, if you get an older catalog, you can see a lot of guns that were on the market in the old days, looking in awe of advertisements like 40 cal Glocks when 40 cal was the hottest thing, and just bawl your tears out about how good the prices were for some of these guns that were around before you were born. With just one of these thick books in your hand, you'll daydream all day of your never-ending quest for your dream collection to finally be finished, even though you know it's never going to be finished. There's always a new gun on the horizon. Okay, enough rambling about catalogs, let's go on to the next category. When it comes to educational books about guns, you have a massive amount to choose from. Gunsmithing, reloading, a specific guide on repairing a niche gun. It probably exists and feels great to have that knowledge no matter what your current predicament is, like if your house or shop's internet is down. Recently, I picked up an old reloading book from the 70s. It contains what you normally think of when it comes to reloading, but also gives you a brief summary and a history of a lot of cartridges I haven't even heard of. That's just plain awesome. They didn't have to do that. The presentation, images, and everything about this book is really cool to a person like me who barely knows a thing about reloading. Here's the weirdest book I own. Weird as in, how the hell did this book even get here? It's a Russian book titled Infantry Weapons of 1939 to 1945 Military Equipment. It contains pencil schematic-like drawings of World War II weapons with lengthy descriptions that I can't read without Google Translate. Even though it's a bit of a nightmare to read, obviously, it looks great in my collection and fun to skim through nonetheless, especially the gun illustrations. Speaking of illustrations, I got two books right here in our next category, illustrated gun books where the pictures are used as the shining star of the book. The first book in this category I have is Guns of the Old West, which gives a great history and explanation of old Western guns like Spencer rifles and Winchesters, on top of discussing different outlaws and what the Wild West was really like. And to top it all off is the fantastic historical photos of famous outlaws, high quality pictures of the guns themselves, and a lot more miscellaneous Wild West accessory photos. This book is great for sifting through quickly or sinking your teeth into the stories behind the images this book contains. Second book I got here is Small Arms, 17th century to the present day. Very similar to the Old West book, clean images of firearms, in this case clean simplistic 3D model firearms that look like they got ripped from a PS2 game. The shape of the book seems rather long, but it makes up for this by having these really cool real life photos that really take advantage of the whole page. Next category is a little off topic, but is what you probably find all the time at book or thrift stores when you're on the hunt for gun books: hunting literature, hunting handbooks, field dressing guides, tip and tricks books. My god, there's so many, I could be here for hours. However, they do their job excellently, getting you hyped and prepared for the next hunting season, and that's all I can really say about this category as a whole without repeating myself from past categories. But I do have one hunting related book that I have a lot more to talk about. A Look at Life from a Deer Stand by Steve Chapman. This was an unexpected purchase I recently picked up. I was trying to find a non-fiction gun novel that wasn't made by Wayne LaPierre for my collection. Even though the focus is more about hunting than anything about firearms, hunting is still a big part of gun culture, like it or not, and this book in itself is a gem. This book is a look into how hunting has helped the author learn lessons about developing a closer relationship to family and God, sharing lessons and wisdoms he got from his multiple hunting trips. He goes all with comparisons with deep shit, like comparing letting go of your child's destiny when they grow up to letting an arrow go. His hunting stories with his son is one of the key highlights of the book, him being there for his first empty-handed hunting trip to them both scoring their first buck with a bow. He gives these stories a really heartwarming touch and, to be honest, a very emotional book to read. If you really read this book, you can tell this guy truly appreciates the outdoor and isn't a con artist. He truly means what he says. I highly recommend this book. It's a very quick and thought-provoking read, even if you aren't fully engulfed in the hunting world. I highly recommend it. Last category of books I have are Second Amendment guidebooks, books meant to teach or show plights that face the Second Amendment. Gun control means people control is an example of what fights the Second Amendment had back in the 70s when handgun bans were a real, constant threat. A lot of the messages of the book still ring true today. Talks of how a world government would crack down on gun ownership, massive gun confiscation, and even how senators at the time were twisting data to crack down on citizens' Second Amendment rights. My last book in this category and in this video is the Second Amendment Primer. This book has everything to understand the history, context, and arguments made for and against the Second Amendment, a great stepping stone into a deeper dive into it. I always flip through it to give my noggin a joggin' to enhance my arguments to fight for our God-given rights. What I've also noticed about this category, the books are pretty small, so it's nice to carry around or put on a small shelf. In turn, making it great if you don't want a small collection, but don't want to take up a bunch of space you don't have. Well, this is the end of my collection, so it's time to wrap up this video and give my final thoughts about these books. So hopefully this gave you a small glimpse into how cool and cozy some of these books can be, but some of you procrastinators may be asking, what would be a great motivator for me to open one of these up? I think the easiest way is when you're absolutely bored with YouTube, social media, the internet, or just video games. Take a quick break. Grab any gun book and just read away. Heck, go to a local park that you haven't been to for a while and find a nice secluded area to read away at peace. Makes you really appreciate being slightly away from technology, or maybe just being in a comfy room during a cold winter's night with a hot drink is just enough of motivation. Thank you for visiting. Until next time, this is Wubba Bubba signing off again.